Professor Jordan Peterson has his visiting fellowship revoked by Cambridge University on further review of the opinions of its student union. I'm your host, B.A. Jarvis, and you're watching The Golden Door. Alright, so not a great week for Professor Jordan B. Peterson. In addition to having his self-help book, 12 Rules for Life, pulled from the shelves from a major New Zealand book chain, he's also had his Cambridge fellowship revoked. Now, this was a 2-month-long visiting fellowship set to begin in the fall with Cambridge's School of Divinity. Peterson made the announcement in a Q&A blog post on his YouTube channel on Monday night, and the reaction from faculty and students has been swift. At this point, there have been a number of articles written about this story, but we're going to take a look at one in particular and then take a quick look at Peterson's longer response in the National Post. So this article was written by Huffington Post and published on Thursday. Cambridge University cancels fellowship offer for Jordan Peterson. The Toronto professor publishes a scathing blog post in response. So this is going to quote Peterson's response, but we're going to take a longer look at that a bit later. The controversial Toronto psychology professor is lambasting a prestigious British university after it opted to rescind a visiting fellowship on the basis of his work. Jordan Peterson published a blog post in the wake of the move from Cambridge University, criticizing the school for its decision to withdraw the opportunity for a 2-month-long scholarly visit to the elite campus. Peterson, an outspoken critic of political correctness and many campus movements broadly affiliated with the political left, accused the school of bowing to pressure from students and failing to notify him directly of the decision to retract the fellowship. Cambridge spokesperson Tasman Starr denied both allegations laid out in the blog post, saying Cambridge emailed the professor prior to sending out a tweet announcing the withdrawal of the offer, and asserted the decision was made based on a review of his academic work rather than student backlash. Quote, "It was rescinded after a further review," Starr said. She did not respond to a detailed list of questions, including whether such reviews are standard procedure and what specific findings triggered the withdrawal. Peterson's blog posts let loose a scathing words for the school's Faculty of Divinity, which arranged for the fellowship and where the University of Toronto professor said he'd hoped to gain further material for a planned set of lectures on stories from the Bible. Quote, "I think the Faculty of Divinity made a serious error in judgment in rescinding their offer to me," he wrote in his blog post. "I think they handled publicizing the rescindment in a manner that could hardly have been more narcissistic, self-congratulatory, and devious. I wish them the continued decline in relevance over the next few decades that they deeply and profoundly and diligently work toward and deserve." Savage. Peterson said the idea of a visiting fellowship came to him after he lectured in the school and met with Divinity faculty members last year. In a brief tweet announcing the retraction, Cambridge insisted that Peterson requested the fellowship that was due to get underway in October. Peterson's post referred to this assertion as a, quote, half-truth, saying it had been discussed with faculty members before he submitted his formal request. Word that Peterson's offer had been rescinded was greeted with relief by the Cambridge University Students' Union, who began tweeting about his invitation in the days before it was withdrawn. Quote, "His work and views are not representative of the student body, and as such, we do not see his visit as a valuable contribution to the university, but one that works in opposition to the principles of the university," the union said in its Facebook post, later clarifying that they take exception with what they describe as a history of actively espousing discriminatory views toward minority groups, rather than his positions on academic freedom. Peterson has been a vocal critic of, among other things, the use of gender-neutral pronouns of those identifying as transgender. His notorious refusal to use them helped catapult him into global fame. Peterson's blog post took shots at the union's response, finding fault with its literary style as well as its substance. He said in the response received to the 2008 visit to the campus suggested that people at the university were interested in his perspective. It seemed that a packed Cambridge auditorium, the intelligent questions associated with the lecture, and the overwhelming number of views the subsequently posted video accrued indicates that there is a number of Cambridge University students that are interested in what I have to say and might well regard my visit as a valuable contribution to the university, he said. Now, I might be reading a little bit too much into this, but I think the language is telling even in the first couple of paragraphs here. The fact that he used controversial in front of Toronto University professor, prestigious British university, elite campus, it's almost like they're playing him off as this backwoods professor that has no place in this, pristine ivory tower institution. The other thing that I wanted to point out is, again, The rescinded after further review star not responding to the detailed list of questions, including whether such reviews are standard procedure and what specific findings triggered the withdrawal. You'd think those would be easy questions to answer had an academic review actually been done. Anyway, I want to take a quick look at Peterson's response. For the last several months, the National Post has been publishing a series of personal essays by Peterson on a wide range of topics, so it's not as if they gave him specific column inches to go after the university on this matter. Nevertheless, Peterson decided to use the platform to make his feelings known. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the details of the article because a lot of it was covered in the Huffington Post piece, but I do want to highlight a few passages. So it starts by describing his initial visit to Cambridge and conversations that led to his applying for the fellowship, and discusses the nature of his biblical series of lectures, which he was hoping to continue. So I'll start here. In the fall, I am planning to produce a series of lectures on the Exodus stories. I presume they will have equal drawing power, referring to how popular his previous Bible series lectures are. I thought I could extend my knowledge of the relevant stories by spending time in Cambridge, and that in doing so it would be useful to me, for faculty members who might be interested in speaking with me, and to the students. I also regard it as a privilege and an opportunity. I believe, and still believe, that collaborating with the Faculty of Divinity on such a project would constitute an opportunity of clear mutual benefit. Now the Divinity School has decided that signaling to their solidarity with the diversity, inclusivity, equity mob trumps that opportunity, or so I presume. You see, I don't know yet because, and this is particularly appalling, I was not formally notified of the decision by any representative of the Divinity School. I heard about the rescinded offer through the grapevine, via a colleague and a friend, and gathered what I could for the reasons on social media and the press coverage. It's not going to make much of a difference to my future regardless. I have more opportunities at the moment than I can keep track of, let alone capitalize on. In the fall, I will produce the lectures I plan to produce on Exodus, regardless of whether they occur in the UK or in Canada or elsewhere, and they will attract whatever audience remains interested. But I think it is deeply unfortunate that the authorities of the Divinity School in Cambridge decided that kowtowing to an ill-informed, ignorant, and ideologically addled mob trumped participating in an extensive online experiment in mass Christian and psychological education. Given the continued decline of church attendance, the rise in atheistic and agnostic sentiment, and the increasing irrelevance of theological education and the collapse in interest in matters among young people, wiser and more profound decisions might have been made. Alright, now some brief thoughts before we move on to other topics. It's clear that there's some anger in Peterson's response, and it can be no way described as turning the other cheek. So a lot of people have rightfully pointed out that you can probably read a bit of ego coming through in his response. However, it's hard not to argue that his partnership with the School of Divinity would have been of mutual benefit. You might even argue it would be a match made in heaven. Peterson's academic work in clinical psychology has been cited over 11,000 times, and if you've watched any of his online lectures or read any of his published work, you know that his interest in religious meaning grounds a lot of his theoretical frameworks. It's hard to imagine that what a further academic review could have uncovered, which led to the offer being rescinded, but the university itself isn't saying. And to be honest, we will probably never know the full truth of the matter. Also, the timing seems suspicious for that argument, given the fact that it was only announced on Monday and the offer was rescinded on Wednesday, giving the student union 2 days to lobby the administration while making their opposition publicly known through their Twitter account, and I'm assuming other student publications. Either way, it's not going to affect Peterson's trajectory, and as I argued in my last video, it will likely only serve to galvanize his fans. Whether Cambridge University will suffer any integrity or credibility hit will ultimately depend on where you land on Peterson, but I personally find it hard not to see at a loss for the School of Divinity. Anyway, we'll likely never know the full story, but let me know what you think in the comments section. Do you think that Peterson was wrong to go on the offensive? Is this just another step towards some kind of Orwellian dystopia? Let me know. If you want to see more content like this, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and until next time, this has been The Golden Door.